afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Michelle Nelson, and I'm the social media specialist here at Field Routes. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us for How to Grow Your Business with Better Training, featuring Kurt Anderson. Before we get started, though, I'll give you a bit of background on Kurt. Kurt Anderson began his career in the pest control industry as a technician with preventative pest control and ultimately ascended to chief financial officer over the company's 9 locations across the Southwest. He now co owns SWAT Pest Pros of Utah and is co founder and vice president of sales at Pest Pro University, an online training and development company designed specifically for pest control professionals. Anderson holds a master's degree in business administration, and out of a desire to better help and understand people, he also holds a bachelor's degree in human development and family studies. We want to welcome you, Kurt. Glad to have you.
Hey, thank you so much, Michelle. It is great to be here. I appreciate you and Field Routes for bringing me on and allowing me to be a part of this. I'm excited to be here. I guess as I'm looking at this, the first thing, of course, I see is my headshot right there. And I guess hopefully if any of you are wondering why people pay for professional headshots, this example is a great reason to say, my hair's not really done, my tie's down a little bit on everything, and so I guess that's why they pay for the big bucks for somebody to do it right on everything. So anyway, it is great to be here. I'm excited to be with you. I am very into training and making sure that everybody feels comfortable, knows exactly what they're doing, what their responsibilities are, and in so doing that, that is honestly how you grow your business. So I would like to discuss that a little bit. The first thing to kind of point out is that you have to know where you're going in your business. You are the one who gets to make that direction and say, hey, look, this is the place that we are headed to, and this is what we want to do. And when you are the owner, the manager, or a decision maker, you get that opportunity to say, this is who we are. And each of those small kind of little decisions have a big impact on your company and where you do end up. And, for some people, it's every company is going to vary. Some companies want to be huge. They want to be the large. They want to be the biggest, the best type of thing. And others just want to have a couple of employees. They just want to do a couple of these other things, which is perfectly fine. But it's much easier to train and to send you the direction that you want to go if you do know where you're going. And so the example I kind of am bringing up is Sir David Brailsford and the English cycling team. And maybe you've heard about them and their situation. But if not, I'll give you a brief kind of history. Their cycling team was awful. And they at one point they did well, but that was in the early 1900s, early 1900s. And they got worse and worse and worse. And even though they had their best people possible in their country riding, they were still very bad. And companies didn't want them riding their bikes because they said, hey, look, this team is so bad on everything. And so David Brailsford was hired to kind of run the cycling team. And his whole thing was marginal gains. And with those marginal gains, he started implementing a whole bunch of stuff, meaning I guess he said the whole principle came from the idea that if you broke down everything you could think of that goes into riding a bike and improved it by 1%, you will get a significant increase when you put them all together. And so he would look at how they wash their hands to make sure that sickness and other things didn't happen. He would monitor their sleep. He would monitor the food that they ate and every little thing that they were doing. And then once they pieced that together, they had an incredible amount of success. When he did it, just to give you kind of a little bit about it, it was at the 2004 Olympic Games in Great Britain. They won 2 cycling gold medals, which was their best performance since 1908. And they continued to improve, and they won multiple world championships in road, track, BMX, and mountain bike racing. And Great Britain led the cycling medal table at the 2008 and 2012 Olympic Games, winning 8 golds at both, while the British cyclists won 59 world championships across different platforms from 2003 to 2013. He also ended up working with riders on the Tour de France and won like 6 Tour de France's on everything. And so it really was an incredible turnaround that he did. And it wasn't, hey, I've got new people, there's a whole different thing, but it was just doing everything kind of in that proper way. And so if maybe we can kind of push out that poll, Jackie, I'd appreciate it. With that, onboarding is, of course, obviously the first step in training your people, getting them up to speed. And so, you know, I've thrown this poll out. Hopefully you've seen it in front of you and are taking just a second to answer that. But the question is do you have an onboarding program in place today? And so go ahead and answer that. And we'll hopefully get some results here. In just a second. And but with it, the reason why that onboarding is so important, you've got to quickly pull them on. They need to be up to speed and you know, kind of to your floor as soon as possible with kind of the bare minimum on everything. And when you're looking at your what you guys are doing, it looks like we have a pretty good amount. 80% are saying yes, 20% are saying no. It's hard, you know, in this to get a poll to find out exactly what you are doing. In my experience, as I have talked and worked with many other companies, is it's typically classroom time, and then it's a time of ride-alongs to go out with your best trainer on everything. And so on there, when you look or you're breaking everything down, you've got to say, hey, look, is your process efficient? You know, kind of how long does it take? How much does it cost? Are they actually learning things? And so I've talked to people who will do just straight ride-alongs for 2 months. They say that the purpose that they're doing that is because it allows them to see a wide variety of pests that they might run into. It does all these other things, but if you get into that situation and somebody quits and you've got to hire somebody because you need to fill a position, 2 months can be too long of a time. So you got to look at how long it's taking. How much does it cost? You know, for the way I did it a lot of times was, you know, I would have myself in the classroom and I would spend, you know, maybe 6 hours with a new hire. And then we would go out and I guess in the classroom, we'd talk about all the personal protective equipment, all of the, you know, kind of things that go into being a technician and what that takes to be a pest management professional. And then all of a sudden, we'd go out, we'd do 2 or 3 services just to kind of give them an idea. The next day we were planning on going in the classroom and they didn't show up. And so I just wasted 6 hours on everything. And so is that the best use of my time on everything to be there? Are there more efficient ways of kind of doing that? We also, I tried it at other times where we would send people out with best guys. And just in my own experience, when I was the guy who was new, they sent me with the best guy. And to improve the training, make sure things were done, they gave him a list of things he was supposed to discuss with me, and we never did. He just checked them off. When we went to the house, you know, nobody was home, so we did the outside. He showed me how to do the outside and what went on, and so it was like, okay, hey, that's great. And then we, the next place somebody was there, he showed me how to do the inside, treat the inside of the home. And then every single house after that, it was, hey, this time you're inside and I'm outside. And if it was that he was doing nobody was home and we were only doing an exterior treatment, he would do the liquid treatment and I would do the duster and I would get the cobwebs and things like that. And so I knew how to do the service, but I didn't know anything about pest control or what I was supposed to be knowing about. And so there are so many things that even when it is your best guy, you got to say, hey, look, are they getting the knowledge? Is it getting down to the end of the row? And so when you're doing that onboarding, I would recommend that there's a few of you that aren't. I would say, hey, jump on there, find those things that are the most important that people have to know, and then go with it and make sure that that training is there and that there's a process so that you do cover all your bases, so that you do know everything that your technicians should be knowing. And it includes your sales staff and your office management team as well, that your office staff should know what's expected of them, what things they do need to be trained on, and what things will do best for their jobs. And of course, like I'd mentioned, anybody can go and say, hey, look, this is what I'm supposed to do. But there are so many other parts of the jobs that are there that you have to stay on top of. And so, things like customer service. Do you have anything available where you're saying, hey, look, this is how customer service looks in our company? And I think that so many companies that I've been a part of, it comes out to be like, well, you've had good customer service and people have been nice or something, so go do that. And what ends up happening is the customer says, hey, I've got flies coming out of my drain. Will you just spray in there and get it done for me? And of course, that is a very bad thing to do in that situation. And if they're saying, hey, this is the customer service that I was taught, that's what you're going to get, a lot of illegalities. And so you have to teach on those kind of finer points that happen as part of customer service. Time management is a big thing, as well. Nothing will frustrate you more as an owner or manager when you're dealing with budgets and certain amount of money coming in, as if your office staff feels like they've got a couple hours worth of work done, and then they're on Facebook or they're shopping on the computer instead of building your company on everything. And if we haven't gone over the proper things of time management, if we're not giving them enough things to do, which means we also need to train them on those other things, then we're not really reaching our full potential, or you're taking more of that burden on yourself and you're more stressed and you're more troubled because you have a million things to do. And these other people that you're paying an hourly rate to don't have as much to do and have time to go shopping and check out what's happening on Facebook. And so it is important that you hit those finer processes. Efficient work processes can be things, as simple as pulling a hose. Are you going back out there? And I know some people have backpack sprayers, but are you going out and showing them exactly how to pull that hose? Are they just grabbing it and yanking it around the house and getting it caught on things and rubbing against walls and fences and doing that, ripping up solar panel kind of things, little lights or things around? And if we're not going out and showing or making sure that they know exactly how to pull a hose, it's not as an efficient work process. Are your people emptying their B&Gs at the end of the day, depressurizing them? Have you, kind of taught them on that? Are you pouring the rest of your B&G back into that tank so that you use up all of the product and don't have any sitting in the tank and going bad or doing anything like that? And so those little things can mean a big difference. There are things where they have to know their equipment. I've been caught so many times where I've had to go from the office doing the things that I have to do because I had never trained anybody on how their equipment works or how it looks. And, it'd only take you a time or two where you've got to drive that 40-minute drive, and maybe you switch out a B&G or you do something like that, that after that, all of a sudden for me, it was, okay, hey, look, our next training meeting, I'm going to buy screwdrivers, both flathead and Phillips. I'm going to have a couple of wrenches. I'm going to have a few things that are most natural. Every single truck is going to have them so that the guys can work on them, and then they can fix something or some of these minor things when they're out on their own. They're going to understand how the pumps work, how things go, because nobody has the time to go out there and do everything for them on that. And those types of things are great for those guys because they don't want to sit and wait either. Vehicle maintenance is a huge thing. Oil changes, brakes, if they don't know what a truck sounds like when the brakes are bad and they're not doing it, then you're going to break down into rotors. The truck's going to have more difficult situation for you. And so you've got to do that. And again, this isn't just for the technicians, for everybody. Resolving issues or customer concerns on stuff. That it used to be, again, for me in my company, it was, hey, look, anytime a customer has a concern, if they want to cancel, if something's going on, management's going to take care of it because we care the most and we're going to do this. Well, the technician would be in front of the house. The office staff would be on the phone with them and say, hey, look, this guy's got to handle this. I'll have them get in touch with you. And then I call them 10 times and never get them. They had said that they wanted to cancel, and that was no good. So what we would do is we would grab each of the reasons. We'd sit in there with the team and we'd brainstorm and say, hey, what are the reasons that people are canceling? And then we would have, kind of a conversation progress sheet where it's, hey, look, if they're saying this reason, these are proper responses. These are things that you can say. And then we trained on it. And while we were in there, we would explain those things and have that done. We would get that all set up and done for everybody. And then all of a sudden we wouldn't have to wait. There wouldn't be callbacks. There wouldn't be anything else. And everybody else cared as much. Okay. I did have kind of a question come in. Hopefully it's, we'll kind of jump into it. But what is the best continuous method for training for techs already working to make sure everyone is still updated on all procedures and treatment methods? So to me, in that situation, is what we do is a regular continuous training. I don't know what you have. I appreciate Jackie pulling up the poll question right here. It's what additional trainings do you provide throughout the year? Are there weekly office trainings, the state-sponsored classes? Those are great. NPMA has events, including stuff like Pest World, which is fantastic to get to, where you have all these other speakers. There might be some other things, or if you have more than one answer, I hope that you'll answer those. But to me, especially when you're talking about training for technicians, I put that as kind of the tech manager job. And look, there are so many times that you have to repeat everything over and over and over again on that. And it's just the process. People forget, people kind of change things in their own mind. And so it's always going back to the basics and saying, hey, how are we doing this? And if we're only meeting with our employees or our staff once every 3 months, once every couple of months, we're not getting them enough information. And so we're going to go on to a couple more things that are ways that we train and ways that we do stuff, and some great options, but and kind of looking at those different things. But we'll get that. And it looks like you guys are doing a lot of those things. And so if we're meeting often, we're doing those things, it is great. Oh, sorry. Those things that are out there, like I said, are for kind of that advanced training. Once you get them through that onboarding process and they know the basics on stuff, what things are you doing? I guess maybe I'm preaching a little bit to the choir here when I say, hey, look, you can do webinars. And it's awesome that companies like Field Routes has stuff like this going on so that you can improve your business. The states have different events. I know I've traveled to Florida, Arizona, Texas, I'm going to Hawaii, all these other kind of things for these training events that happen, and take advantage of them. Make sure that they're getting their CEUs, make sure that they're doing those things. I went to an office that we had, and they were a well-oiled machine, and it was fantastic to see. And majority of their training came from TED Talks. They met on a weekly basis, and they would show a quick 3 to 7 minute clip. Not a lot of time. It's somebody else doing the teaching. It's not your same voice on everything. And they would just show a TED Talk, and it would be on those things like customer service, like having a positive attitude, like viewing things just a little bit differently on everything. Maybe everybody, one of your employees weren't saying, oh, my hope and dream as a child was to work for a pest control company. And those TED Talks would talk about making the most of your situations and finding the best options. And every single week, he pulled one of those out. And the energy, the excitement, the joy that came from everybody there was phenomenal. And it was palpable compared to many of the other branches that I would go out and visit on stuff, because they did do such a great job with that. And so I get that as I'm saying some of this stuff, part of it is going to be, hey, well, I'm a smaller company. I don't have the money, or it's too tough to send so many people there. So if you can pull trainers to you, use those TED Talks. You're all purchasing product chemicals from manufacturer, and usually when you do that, they are more than willing to allow you to send to have somebody come out and train your staff, to spend an hour with them, to go over things, to answer questions, which is incredibly valuable to you. It can make everything a whole lot better for you. And so I'm actually, we have online training that goes very well for you as well. I think in my view, pest control is a little bit behind on the times. Maybe we're a little more old school on everything. And so some of these online trainings we're not embracing quite as well. And I think that you ought to do that. And not just because I do online training, but when you kind of take a look at those, and you'll realize that you are saying the same things over and over again, you will get things done quicker. You will have other people teaching your people. It can be more efficient. I went to Florida for a training. They did something called Tech Days. They shut down, they had a whole hotel. And so a lot of people shut down their offices and just had to shut it down for 2 days. They came to this hotel. They allowed us to go into the bar, the hotel rooms, the pool area, all these different scenarios where it's like, hey, what are the best training? And then they had Warner Ladders, and they had all these big name companies showing exactly how this work is to be done. Well, not everybody can afford to shut down their office for a couple of days, or have enough people so that they can send some and not the others. When you do it online, typically that is a place where you can go to it at any given time, and you can be a part of that when it's easy and best for you, and you can take it in pieces instead of the whole thing all at once. And again, I've talked about kind of those weekly office meetings, and if you don't have that, set that up for you, and then put out a calendar and just think, go for about 3 months on something like that, and say, hey, what are the biggest issues that we are running into? What are problems that I think we could do a little bit better on? And then hit that every Wednesday morning, Monday morning, whatever it is, and take just those 10 minutes to show a video, or come in and say, hey, look, this is a worry for us. This is what we're doing. Let's improve in these areas. Make sure that this is what's happening. Take a specific pest. If people aren't getting rid of ants and your reservice calls are crazy on ants, then do an ant training. Have your best person there put together an ant training for you, give everybody the reminders, tell them what they're looking for, take those 10 minutes. And so many people are going to say, oh man, I've been through this a whole bunch of times, but do it again. There's always these finer points. Let them teach it, do something like that. I guess I think I might have jumped through one, and I apologize on that. So, but I'm going to kind of maybe jump back a little bit and talk about why proper training is important. It is not just to have training or to have somebody talking, but you need your employees engaged. You need them learning. And like I said, with the office staff, if they're watching Facebook instead of growing, they're not going to feel satisfied in their jobs. And they're going to say, hey, look, I want to go other places. Morale won't be as good. If people don't know what they're doing and they're messing up at houses when they're there, or they only get customers yelling at them, the morale is going to start to falter because we don't have the proper training in place, that it just looks like a cluster of chaos instead of what you need it to be. So, I mentioned employee retention. There was a survey done by LinkedIn that said that 94% of employees would stay longer at a company if it invested in their career development. And so when you give them opportunities to learn, to advance, to show them the way, and it's not just, hey, this is your only job, don't ask me a lot of questions, don't do this, just get out there and get it done. That's not a proper learning environment for them. That doesn't feel the satisfaction that they're looking for. And it makes it so much easier for them to say, I'm just going to move on. And I'm going to find somebody that values me, that says, hey, look, I see a lot of greatness. I see a lot of potential in you. And then it can continue to move. Another thing that happens is increased productivity. I told you a little bit on the onboarding for me about the guy who trained me. I didn't learn a whole lot as a technician. And so I went out and he told me at one time, obviously he wasn't a great best guy, but he said, hey, those granules that we spread in the grass, it's the bifenthrin granules. He said they kill snails. And so then all of a sudden I get a call from a customer, hey, you got to go out and you got to do a snail treatment. I go out there and I spread the granules and I'm like, awesome, I'm done. This is good. Well, the snails kept getting into gardens, eating their plants, doing things. And I think I went back about 6 times. That's not very productive. And so when we have the right training programs in place, we can find that productivity and we will get it done quicker. The customer will be satisfied, which of course the next one is improved customer satisfaction. If we're training on these things and people feel a high morale, they're engaged, your employees are staying with you longer, that means when the customer calls, they're talking to the same people in the office. That means they're seeing the same technician come to their house over and over. And that means that there's a level of comfort with them right there. And the hope is, of course, is if, one of the door-to-door companies are out there and they're knocking doors and they say, hey, look, we're not much different than anybody else, but we'll do it for $5 cheaper. A lot of people switch over. But it's in these training processes, the things that you do that kind of hold them. Now, sometimes people aren't loyal and they'll say, oh yeah, I'll save $5. But on any of those, I would always follow up with those customers at about that 9-10 month mark if they had a year contract, because if it was just all about price and getting a better deal and doing those things, they wouldn't have, again, the proper training and process. They wouldn't have the best way of doing things. They would have a high or a low retention rate, and the turnover would be great. And so they would always deal with other people. And again, if you're always with brand new people, they're not trained well enough. And so it just becomes that cycle. And it was a fantastic thing for me to pull my customers back on when they said, man, I'm going to stay with you because I know what I get, what to expect, and $5 more a month was always worth it. There's adaptation to advancements. And that's an important one because labels and products change, the laws change. And if you're always out there in front of them, trying to make sure that they have everything that they need, that they're doing everything right, it's easy to continually follow the change that's happening. And so things are always going to be changing, and it equips them with the skills and knowledge necessary to embrace and navigate that change effectively. And that's new technologies, that's processes, or anything that you're changing in your organization as well. The final thing that I put on here was innovation and creativity. I would bet you that every advancement that pest control has had has been from people who lived and worked and were always part of the business. Every once in a while, it's great to get fresh eyes, but the more time you spend on it, I've seen some of the coolest ways of doing termite treatments that are different than I've ever seen in the past, and yet follow the label just because they've been doing it for so long and saw a better way to do that. I've seen people who have, one of these things, I always hated cleaning out tanks. I used Demand CS, and it had a smell and a funk and everything like that was in there. And so we'd have to clean those every once in a while. Well, I've seen other people that just fill it with water and then have a backpack sprayer, and then they just mix it in the backpack sprayer. And to me, that was a great innovation to say, hey, look, it's easy to clean this much smaller 4-gallon backpack sprayer than it is to clean a 200-gallon tank, or however big your company's got it on things. And so that was something that was, hey, look, this is brilliant. And then, of course, you can just constantly keep on filling up. You don't have to have the air gaps because you're only pouring water into your big tanks on everything. And it was great. And so that innovation, that creativity is a wonderful thing. And I wrote there at the bottom that these examples demonstrate a wide-ranging benefit of proper employee training in driving business growth. By investing in your employees' development, organizations can cultivate a skilled workforce, improve performance, and gain a competitive edge in the market. And so I think the question now is how to implement that proper training. And so the first thing that you have to do, and this kind of goes along with the question, is identifying those training needs. What is your office lacking? And even if you don't know it, you have a process in place. And so what are your training needs? You got to determine the skills and the knowledge gaps that exist between you and your employees or your departments. And you can look at different metrics. You can conduct employee surveys, or you can seek feedback from managers and team members. You can set clear objectives after that. You've got to define your objectives and your goals for training initiatives. You got to determine what you aim to achieve through training, such as increasing sales, improving customer service, enhancing product knowledge, or developing leadership skills. And those clear objectives will help you guide the training process and measure its effectiveness. Then, of course, you have to develop that training plan. And based on the identified needs and objectives, create a comprehensive training plan, outline the topics, learning methods, the resources required for each training program. Consider the mix of in-person training, online courses, the workshops, mentor programs, and external training from providers on things. And then, and obviously, the important thing is that you have to measure what is going on with that. And so if you don't have measurement, if you don't know if it's actually changing anything, or if we're just running around, that can cause you some serious problems as well. So make sure that you're measuring that. I think that those are kind of the four simplified ways, but I've continued it on to say that you can invest in professional development. And maybe you are not as professional as you want to be quite yet. Maybe you still feel like you have your own learning and you're not qualified to teach on every single thing that's going on. Go out there and find different things. I remember we changed from a door-to-door company to an in-house sales company, and we went to a sales training program with those who are over the sales. And it cost everybody, I don't know, $150 or something to go. And it was fantastic. It really put us in the right place. It showed us where we wanted to go. And even though our office was in Salt Lake in Utah, which had snow on the ground for 6 months of the year, it was performing just as well and even better at times than some of those offices in Houston or in California, Arizona, where they had much better weather constantly on things. And so you can invest in that professional development. You'll have to implement effective training methods. And so you got to choose training methods that align with the learning styles of your employees. You got to incorporate a blend of instructional techniques such as presentation, hands-on activities, role-playing, simulations, and group discussions that are practical for everybody. You can leverage technology as you do it. Technology is great. You can consider using learning management systems to deliver online courses. You can track progress, provide resources. You can have virtual classrooms, video conferencing, and online collaboration. So there's a ton of great things there. Just encouraging continuous learning, giving people opportunities with training manuals, with, again, going to the state-sponsored things, with having people come to you, that if you have that, if some people want to just kind of dive in, some it might just be, hey, look, this is a job. Some will say, hey, look, no, I want to become an entomologist. Give them the resources, put them out there. How great is that they're going to do that? And I guess as some people have said to me, on those, they said, hey, look, I'm just worried that if somebody does that, they're going to leave me for, somebody who can pay them more money or something like that. And my feeling on that is I will take the best of a person that I can get for as long as I can get them for. If somebody else has more to offer, great. But if you also teach them that, show them that, and that they see that you're committed to them and not just to your own company or your own personal interests, they will be more loyal. They will see that. Or if they do go to that bigger company, they might just find themselves drowned out a little bit. Their voice doesn't matter as much. And you might see them back, and don't burn those bridges on anything. You can provide feedback and support. You can offer constructive feedback to employees through their training journey. You can provide support resources to address any challenges that they may face during the learning process. Regularly communicate with them and the value of training that's going on. And you can just foster a learning environment. And so if you cultivate an environment that supports ongoing learning and development, you can celebrate achievements. You can recognize employees who demonstrate exceptional growth or apply their training effectively, and create opportunities for collaboration and knowledge exchange among team members. So those are all important things. One thing, I guess, hey, look, I'm saying a lot of stuff. To me, one of my favorite things that happened was, kind of going through the summertime and making that easier. Well, when we looked at our issues, our problems, to say we hated it when a guy would call morning of, his route was already set, everything was done, his truck was ready to go, we had everything set for him in the morning, and then he'd call up sick and say, hey, I'm not going to be in, or I can't come in till later, this happened, sort of thing. And so that just threw us totally off. And so coming into a summer, we said, hey, look, this is what we're going to do. We need all of our employees to show up. So we're going to give a monthly attendance bonus, and we will give them 1 absence without a warning. If anybody goes out of town and they give us more than a week, that doesn't count. That's not a negative. They can do that. We have plenty of time to prepare. Anybody can call in sick because they have that right. But this attendance bonus was one of those where it's like, hey, please just show up every day. And if you do every day in a month, you do get the one opportunity if you did call in sick or something happened. And people responded. They said, hey, look, I want this $100 or whatever. I'm going to get an additional $100 for doing my job. And it meant enough to them to kind of show up. But we noticed like our problems weren't being solved. We still ran into a lot of chaos. There were still a lot of things that were going on. So we started looking around saying, hey, what do we do in this situation? And we noticed that a lot of people were bringing invoices back that weren't complete. And many of the reasons were like the gate was locked, dog was in the yard, customers said that they weren't ready or things like that. And it just was frustrating because our completion percentage was roughly 65%. And so that means if somebody starts out with 15 in a day, they're only getting 10 done. And so then we have to reschedule 5. And if every technician is doing something like that, then the next day, everybody didn't have 15, they had 20 services. And then they're put into this chaos on everything. So we said, hey, in addition to the attendance bonus, let's get a completion percentage as well. And again, these are things that you could put back to your office staff if they have time to be on Facebook or shopping or things like that. And we would mark how many that they started out with the day on everything. If they accepted a call in and picked up a same day service, they still only started the day with those 15. And so it increased. There was an incentive for them to be there. And after a short amount of time, everybody was over 90%. When they started doing stuff where it was, oh, the gate actually wasn't locked, it was just kind of jammed a little bit. So I finagled the gate, I was able to get through. Oh yeah, it was a dog, but it was just this tiny little one. It wasn't a big deal, and I just didn't want to do it. They would come back with other things to say, hey, look, I'm getting this. I want to hit my attendance goal or my completion percentage goal on everything. But they're saying, oh, the office, this, or I'm not ready or something like that. So then we did trainings on how to resolve those issues with them to say, oh, hey, you're not ready for the inside. Let me complete the entire outside. Just call in when you do want the inside and we'll get that set up. It'll be no big deal the next time we're in the area. And all of a sudden, instead of only getting 10, everybody was getting 14 to 15 services done in a day. That meant that the office had less work to do, to reschedule, to put routes together, to do everything like that. People were happier because they were making more money by putting in that little bit of effort. They were getting attendance bonuses. They were being praised in front of their fellow employees. The morale was high, and things go great. And so I guess that's my last slide. In summary, when you do the right training, when you do the proper things, when you identify what your office, your business, your branch needs, and you do that, you will see an increase in growth in your business. You will get more services done. You will have customers happier about it. You will get things done the best way you can. And so it'll be a much better thing. I know training is always one of those things where it's like, man, I don't have time to sit and do it. But that's the place that you have to start. And once you start, all of a sudden you'll piece all these things together. You'll have a great culture, and your company will grow. So I guess,
Well, we already have people saying thank you, and I want to thank you, Kurt, so much for all of this wonderful information. I'm guessing that everyone does still have some questions. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and submit any questions you have for Kurt using the Q&A dialog box on the side of your screen, and he'll be able to answer as many questions as possible in the time that we have left. And while you're doing that, I'm going to ask that Jackie, our moderator, highlight the button at the bottom of your screen where you can sign up for a free demo of Field Routes. For anyone who is not already a Field Routes customer, this is a great opportunity to experience our operations and our marketing suites firsthand. More information about Kurt and Pest Pro University may be found via the link beneath Kurt's picture on the right side of your screen. And let me take a look at our questions. Okay, question number 1. What are some ways you identified training needs?
I think for me on something like that is what you want to do is I look at where the loudest noises are coming from, kind of maybe those complaints and some of the things that are hardest. And when you look at something that's just not going very well, maybe it's great for you to have a pad of paper, something to write down what the office staff is saying, what the sales staff is saying on different things. And if you have that kind of stuff going on, kind of dive into it, take a little peek, look at it, see what's happening. I remember there was a time that our sales were down. I sat in the room where the sales team was. I thought they were doing a pretty good job. But then going back through and listening to phone calls on everything and going a little bit deeper into stuff to say, hey, why is this happening? People were put on hold a lot. Things were, didn't have the answers right away on everything. And it just didn't flow very well. So we had to spend some more time in some sales training. We had to look at different things. And so I usually go with look at those issues and identify what's there and kind of go after those squeaky wheels that cause you the most issues.
Wonderful. Thank you. Question number 2. Can you give us some examples of how you would measure effectiveness?
To measure effectiveness, I would say that, I guess I kind of gave a little bit of an answer on that, where, kind of in my summer training portion, I would look at that and say, hey, look, if we're missing 5 services in a day, if it's, roughly $100 per service, that's $500 per technician on everything. That's a killer. And you need those finances on everything. And so I think that what you have to do is look at those in measurable goals. When you're talking to your staff, they need to know exactly what they're looking for, what it takes, and you have to be able to measure it. And so that you can look to them and say, hey, you were at 65, Now you're at 95. This is a big deal. This means more income. This means you're getting paid more. This means all the benefits that come from that is how I would look at that.
How do I optimize hourly wages over production?
So that's a tough one, and something that I has probably been a battle in the industry for years on everything. And if I understand that right, Bell, what you're saying is you some companies would do something like pay their technicians a percentage of their production, what they were able to go out and do, versus an hourly wage. And the problem is that if you do production, sometimes you're going to get guys cutting corners, cheating the system, doing that kind of stuff, and just zooming through and not taking the necessary time to get things done. But if you do hourly, you could have people on the clock just taking forever, and then you're paying a higher rate to your employees that way, because they can just say, hey, look, I was working all day, and maybe they still stopped by their house and took a nap during the day, or took a 2-hour lunch, or did things, and yet you're paying them an hourly wage. And so when I look at optimizing hourly wages over production, and I hope I'm understanding this right, is maybe kind of putting in those other steps. You know, if that's the worry for you, you got to look at GPS maybe on your vehicles. You've got to have those other kind of, and I'm saying other kind of things, but that doesn't answer your question. So yeah, it's a hard situation. I think it's a tricky situation, and maybe what you can do is kind of look at it as a bigger picture on everything. If you've done both of those, you can look at, you can get feedback, one, from your employees to say what's going on. You might want to say, when you're looking at like your expense reports and your P&Ls and stuff like that, you can look at these things and say, okay, when I did it hourly, my rate was, you know, whatever it is, 7% I was paying to my technicians. When I did it based off production, you know, here were the positives, here were the negatives, but it was, you know, 10% of each job on everything. And you can kind of look at it in those ways, would be, you know, maybe some of my best guesses on doing something like that.
I find that there is a huge bridge between our techs in the office, which causes a hostile workplace, and techs not wanting to call into the office, and office staff not wanting to call techs. How can we, in between, make each side understand each other's processes, and get communication up?
Oh, that is a tough one too on that. You know, again, it's a lot of the things that I've seen are, you know, again, the office staff will get a call that says, hey, look, your guy didn't do this. Come to my house. I need it done today. And it's way out of the technician's way. And he's got to travel all those areas. And so the tech is saying, hey, look, I don't want to do this huge job for you on everything like that. And so it is a very difficult situation. I have found, you know, kind of some different things have worked pretty good. You know, kind of those incentives to work with one another. You know, again, I mentioned about like picking up same day services with the completion percentage. That upped their completion percentages when the technicians did that. The office staff doesn't always understand what the technicians are going through, how hard it is to navigate all these roads, to be there to answer the questions, to run around. Of course, we don't want to be on our phones while we're driving as well. And then you want to be as productive or as quick as you can as a technician. So then adding new services or going through can feel like a waste of time. And so you can put in incentives for technicians to take on new clients from the office, or same days. You can pay a little bit higher for those on everything. I think that training does come into view where if you can give the office staff an idea of what the technician does go through, and then vice versa, the technicians to understand that. I think it comes to maybe a leader on the office staff as well, and maybe you help them lead that by doing something like having like gift cards. Maybe you go out and you spend $100 in gift cards or something in $10 increments, and have the office staff, when somebody picks something up, be able to say, "Hey, look, you're awesome. You are totally helping me out. Thank you so much." And you shoot a little thank you over to them, or "Hey, look, I'm going to get you something, so when you come back to the office," I mean, if you have a few things to give them, and say, "Hey, look, I know that was a problem for you," but I think it's those regular things of communication, the understanding what each is going through, and look, some might not care. If you don't have the care, sometimes you have to cut ties with one or the other. If one of the problems is there, and people aren't willing to make adjustments or changes on that.
Absolutely. And Belle brought up the idea of doing ride alongs to see what it's like to be in the field and cycle techs in the office if possible, to see what challenges they face as well. So, as you mentioned, being able to look at things from the other side's point of view.
Right. And again, with that, Belle, I love that idea. I talked about that idea about a million times. And my office staff was always so much busier, and my techs were so busy, so that it was like, oh well, I can't take them off this job so that I can move them over to see what the other is doing. And again, if you can and you can do it, great. I absolutely say go for it. Again, this isn't something for me to promote my own business or things, but those are a lot of the online stuff that we can do as well. If you had video production of, hey, what does a technician do when they're out in the field? Well, you can show that to the office staff. They can do it while they're in the office. They can get a better idea, better understanding. And then it's, oh yeah, this is great. I get this a whole lot more about what a tech's going through. It also helps them as they talk with customers as well. When they do talk to customers, it is, hey, look, this is what the technician should be doing at the house. This is what it should look like. And then it gives you or your office staff a little more confidence with everybody that they're talking to.
All right. Well, that is about all the time that we have today. We want to thank you again, Kurt. We really appreciate you joining us.
Anytime.
And thank you to all of our attendees for joining us today. We hope that you found this valuable. Remember to watch your inbox and your social media feeds for information on our upcoming growth series and tips and tricks series webinars. Everyone have a great day.